every month, AI tools like Bard, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude are getting better and better. And these tools are allowing different opportunities for us to explore. In this video, I'll be looking at how to use AI tools, large language models as they're known, for different purposes like image generation, image creation, understanding what the images are, and really helping us to really take it to the next level. And the aim behind this video really is to see how can we use this between report creation, white paper creation, identifying what different images are, for example, to really up our game on the identification and intelligence of images, which has been very tricky unless you know what the image is, really hard to figure out what that image is going to convey. So we'll take a couple of examples, start with a simple example, and then go into something more complicated. So the first example I'm going to look at is to identify a simple image and then ask it to give us an image to explain what that looks like in real life. So I'm going to upload a quick image into the Bard. That's bard.google.com. So in this example, I have taken a trophy. I call it the image winner, so it doesn't really know from the words of the image what that is. And I'm going to ask it is the prompt I'm going to put in is identify what the image is, and then show a real life image of this object. So we're asking you to do two different things. One is to identify what the image really is. Obviously, it's a trophy, and then we want to see a real life image of this of this item. So we'll let Bard do his thing. This is done through their newly entered image recognition system. So the what this has done is it's given us first of all that the image is a trophy, which is just correct, and then it's also given us some examples of a trophy here, a gold cup, for example, silver plates, crystal bowl. So it's kind of given, it's gone all out for different examples of it. What really helps us to do actually is to kind of go to the next level as well, because this is just to identify a simple object. But what if the object is much more complicated? Then what happens, right? So that's the next thing we're going to do is to look at a more complicated object, explain to us what that is, and we can really take that to the next level, the full representation of that image, and then understanding what the image is, and then maybe even creating a report on that. So let's start with the first step. So for the next part, I've uploaded a image of a car engine, for example. Now you can see here, I just call it machine just to kind of like uh, sort of not mention what's in the diagram. And then the aim really is for it to tell me what this is, and maybe even show me your examples of it and see if they can label some parts of it for me as well. So I'm just going to go there, start entering a prompt. What I'm going to enter is what is represented in the diagram, uh, what is it used for, find real images of each component, and see if we can find a labeled diagram. So the idea really is that it can now go away and understand what the image is. Firstly, it uses Google's image recognition tool to first identify what the image is, and then it's to identify each component of the image and see if it can find me examples of it. So as you can see, it's mentioned that's a gear pump, and it has showed me the different gears, the housing, the shaft, the bearings, the casing. So suddenly I can actually learn what this tool really is, and how to, well, what the different parts are, the gears, for example, the shaft, for example. So it's kind of looked at different elements of it. It's understood the whole diagram and then give me components of it, which I think is really, really interesting. And what you can do then is you can actually like ask it to write a 300 words, or say let's go even a bit longer, say 400 words summary of what this equipment is. Now, if you were to ask me of how will I go about this, I would probably take this summary and put it into ChatGPT and do a better job at it. The reason why I sort of try to use ChatGPT is because ChatGPT 4 especially is far superior in the output it creates than all the tools I've used so far. So I've used a number of tools, different LLMs, both open source and closed source, and ChatGPT 4 is far superior to all of them. So I probably would actually take, the copy of this entire content, and I will then copy paste it over here and then ask it to create a summary of it. Um, and with number of words here, that would be a better way to use the tool. So partially done on Bard and then partially done on ChatGPT 4. Similarly, sometimes when I have long piece of document, I use Anthropic or Claude 2, put the data from there, also summarize it, and come back into ChatGPT to then play with it further. It works better. And then the threads which are there in ChatGPT 4 allow you to then look at it further and dive deeper into them. That's the way you usually do it. So that's the first part of this, where we used images to figure out what each image is, identify images to give us real world examples of them, label them, for example. It doesn't label them on a diagram because you can't recreate diagrams yet, but it can do something interesting, which is to kind of find examples from across the internet and provide them for us. Right. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to use ChatGPT to look at the latest code interpreter, which is the latest plugin, and use that to figure out how can we create a flowchart. So let's look at, let's ask ChatGPT for what is the typical flow of a lead in in a sales funnel. Keep the steps short. I like to keep them short. And so what I'm going to do now is sort of understand the different elements of funnel, and hopefully it'll just give us some ideas. So it says awareness, interest, consideration, intent, evaluation, purchase, post-purchase evaluation. So that's a funnel, for example, for you. Now you can ask it to create for us a flow chart from this. The idea behind that being that you can represent this and enter that information into a report or a white paper, for example. So I asked ChatGPT for code interpreter to kind of look at the different stages of the funnel and then represent as a flowchart. And so it did that. It did that in this very unusual format, which obviously is not super helpful. So then I asked it to make it in a funnel format. Again, did it in a different sort of like a waterfall style of funnel. It kind of created for me, and then I asked to then change it to match the colors. So you do that for me as well. So I give it like a few colors to choose from, and then it kind of use that colors to create it. So what's interesting with that is it can actually use this to then create your brand colors in the diagram as well. Similarly, this can be used to create graphs, can be used to create other diagrams which Python can make. So I want to just kind of quickly show you what's doing actually. It's calling a Python library within this, and is then creating this diagram for you using Python. So it cannot create images for you. It cannot really go do more complex stuff. For example, I experimented with taking a maze, a simple maze, and then change the colors of it and represent it into a sort of a diagram format, and then solve the maze, which typically is possible through Python, but it's not possible here, mainly because it lacks the data capacity, the memory capacity at this point in time, and that's why it's limited. So it can do some very simple stuff like as I showed you earlier, and these diagrams over here. It can create some interesting opportunities, but what I find really interesting is that it can take a journey from a image you sort of upload to bot, for example, you can then follow it through the next step where you can actually understand this. And this could be done, for example, in code generation as well. So you can actually take live code, for example, and see how that works. So the code interpreter can do a great job for you in Python code representation, code bug fixing, for example, and fixing challenges as well. So really interesting tool. I believe as we embark on this journey right now, we're in July 2023. As we embark on this journey and go further, I think this is going to get even better month on month, day on day. So yeah, really interesting, this opportunity. I hope you find this video useful. If you do, please do subscribe and like on the channel. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, have a lovely day. Speak soon.